Hey everyone, this is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and today we are going to take a look at Mercury's upcoming opposition with the planet Uranus. This is coming up over the weekend. We've already taken a look at a lot of interesting transits that are occurring this week, so I would highly recommend, given the amount of energy that's been pouring through this lunar cycle, that you go back and watch the earlier videos this week. But today I want to take a look in particular at the upcoming opposition of Mercury and Uranus, which is happening over the weekend and is starting to engage right now. So first, before I do that, I want to remind everybody you have just today and tomorrow to register for my class that starts on Saturday, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. Go to my website, nightlightastrology.com, click on the courses page, click on the first year course, and then scroll down to learn more about it. It's a 1 year long program. Learn all about Hellenistic astrology, develop a practice if you want to, learn how to read charts for other people, take your own studies further. There's 30 classes, 2 to 3 hours each. They're webinars. They are hosted on Saturdays at noon Eastern, but if you can't make it live, you can always download and keep all of the classroom materials, including the recordings of the classes, video and audio, transcriptions, everything, transcripts, I should say. And there's also 12 guest lectures that happen outside of class, a whole bunch of breakout study sessions with tutors that help you outside of our major classes. We have an interactive forum discussion board. You can ask questions throughout the year. You can email me with questions throughout the year. There's tons of bonus content. It's a really great program. Check it out. Starts on Saturday. You have today and tomorrow to still sign up. Use the early bird payment and save $500 off. That is only available today and tomorrow. Then it's gone. If you sign up after the class starts, full tuition is in effect only. Need-based tuition assistance is also available if you might need that. So be sure to look into that if you think it might help you. I'm really excited to start a new class with all of you guys. Really looking forward to it. So today we are going to take a brief look at Mercury opposite Uranus. So I'm going to go ahead and put the real-time clock up on the screen. And here you can see, here is Mercury on Saturday, November 13th, exactly opposing Uranus. Happens to be taking place right as my first my program begins. And so the first day of class starts under this, and I keep going like, oh, that's astrology for you. Mercury opposite Uranus is such a an emblem, astrological emblem of intellectual shifting, a paradigm change. And I that's what astrology did for me. It completely changed my worldview and my understanding of reality, divinity. It's really a mind-blowing experience. Well, one of the things that Mercury opposite Uranus stands for is the revolution of mind stuff. So we'll be going over that today in a little bit more depth as I unpack some examples for you guys. But if you look at today, so that perfects on Saturday, November 13th, you can see today, November 11th, that Mercury is just a couple degrees away from the opposition to Uranus. So got a couple of days more to go. All right. I wanted to prepare us all for this one because it's a big deal. And it's nice that we're starting to see that Uranian sizzle that was promised under the new moon. We had to go through some frustrating gear grinding stuff throughout this week. With Mercury and Mars and Saturn getting into the square. Now we're starting to see the breakthrough in the momentum shift that is happening as we push toward the eclipse next week. We're going to have Mercury and Mars opposite Uranus. The sun is trining Neptune, talked about that yesterday. The sun is squaring Jupiter, talked about that yesterday. So there's a lot. Now it's like that. It's kind of like the coming up to the peak of the cycle. And Uranus, a Uranian cycle, it has within it the impulse to defy, resist, transform rapidly, suddenly. It's like sudden mutations of mind and spirit. And the impulse to change in this Uranian cycle may come with some of that underlying feeling of divisiveness or polarization and so forth. So we've been talking about also being a little bit careful about that. Well, Mercury opposite Uranus is like the light bulb going off. It's epiphanies, it's sudden, fast realizations. Mercury opposite Uranus is if you're stuck with something, it's the light bulb that goes off and gives you a solution. Mercury opposite Uranus can be irreverent. It can break out with sudden severity. You have to be careful when you're driving, when you're speaking, what kinds of things you say or do. The impulse to be irreverent or to defy authority can easily come from you projecting your own inner conflict with your own authority. You have to be careful of who and why and what you're suddenly feeling the need to provoke or challenge, right? Those kinds of things are very all indicative of Mercury Uranus. And it's very easy to get grabbed by these. I feel like I've been dealing with this all week. Anyway, so I'm going to give you guys a list of very interesting people that were born with Mercury opposite Uranus that can kind of exemplify the energy or bring to life and sort of capture the archetypal combination. So let's talk about a few of them. Jimi Hendrix. Here's a person who was very inventive. Think about his musical style. Think about the Star Spangled Banner that he did with his guitar in particular, where he's mimicking the sounds of Vietnam and war and battle, and burning guitars on stage. And so that kind of innovative but irreverent prankster energy, that's Mercury Uranus. Charlie Chaplin, an incredibly gifted individual and innovative but an eccentric performer. You also have people who can kind of like fly off the handle, like Mel Gibson. Sorry. Like you think about outbursts of speech that are very aggressive, or suddenly the kind of racist statements that have come out, the abusive things that can come out very suddenly and violently. Remember that Mercury and Mars are together right now too. So Mel Gibson is, I don't know him as an individual. I'm not trying to pass judgment on the person, but obviously he's been in the news for these like mental verbal intemperance and big outbursts that have really gotten him in a lot of trouble. Nietzsche, sometimes it's provocative ideas, like Nietzsche's God is dead, and that's a sophisticated idea that Nietzsche had, but the ideas of Nietzsche are provocative and they challenge the established ideas in the history of Western philosophy. Howard Stern, here's someone who's very provocative and maybe sometimes vulgar. So you can think about that with Mercury Uranus. Or you also have people's like Pavarotti, think about his voice, very Mercury Uranus. Jane Austen, think about Jane Austen as someone who was critiquing and just going at the cultural norms of her time, and was something of a proponent for different roles for women. She's in a sense, I would call her one of the great literary feminists. I'm not sure if she technically falls into that category within the history of feminist literature or not, but certainly what she did in the way that she wrote for the progression of women and their rights and independence, especially women not necessarily needing to be married. That's a big theme in most of her novels, if I remember correctly. I think she had I don't know how many total there were, but one of the big themes is I don't need a man I don't have to be dependent on a man and a man's money. That's a huge part of Jane Austen. There's a Mercury Uranus character. John Cleese, if you think about the humor of John Cleese and the whole Monty Python world, eccentric. Or there's a couple of other comedians that come to mind. Rowan Atkinson, kind of like Charlie Chaplin, Mr. Bean, if I'm remembering correctly. Keegan Michael Key, is that how we say his name? You know who I'm talking, Key and Peele. So Key, Mercury opposite Uranus. That just perfectly fits him. And there's so many comedians who are like, the acolytes of absurd satirical humor. I think John Oliver is Mercury. John Oliver's Mercury opposite Uranus. You also have people like Ursula K. Le Guin. I don't know if you guys know of her. Amazing science fiction author, and she's a pioneer and also someone whose mind and the way that she saw reality, her insights and her inventiveness as a writer, just brilliant. I don't know if you guys have ever read her. She's amazing. Also, Bruce Lee. There's someone very, he had a very striking way of speaking and talking and acting, and obviously he was a very electric figure in a lot of ways. So you just think of Mercury opposite Uranus there. Ariana Grande, another great example of Mercury opposite Uranus, has broken a whole huge amount of different records for female recording artists, and just another pioneer for women in the industry. So, just like you think of people who break boundaries, who have some really interesting gifts or voice or abilities, and also the irreverence and the shocking quality of speech and things like that. So those are the kinds of energies that are sort of in the air right now. in some level, it's like have fun with them, and then as always, be careful of getting grabbed by them, especially when it comes to severe like outbursts of speech or emotion or anger or projections. And, it's good to break, Mercury Uranus delivers us some paradigm shifting insights or revolutionary ideas or thoughts or conversations. That's amazing. Solutions to problems, quicker, rapid insights, amazing. Especially if you're learning a skill. Mercury opposite Uranus is like when you have that like sudden rush of like breakthroughs, like, oh my God, I'm really progressing quickly in learning the guitar or something like that. But also the downside can be to swing off the handle sort of wildly. And like, for example, Mercury opposite Uranus, you see like car accidents, things like that. So it's very, and Mars opposite Uranus is a lot more intense. We're going to be dealing with that next week. This one to me is more fun and has like a satirical, absurd, fun kind of, especially with Mercury and Scorpio, a little bit of a dark humor to it, which can be very enlightening and I think playful. Mars next week, a little bit different. that's a little bit more intense, but we'll be covering that next week. So that's what I've got for you today. Don't forget that you have just today and tomorrow to sign up if you still want to. I hope to see some of you in class soon. Otherwise, if you have stories about any of these transits this week, make sure you use the hashtag grabbed. The planets called grahas, they seize or grab our consciousness. We are working to understand their presence and work with them and alongside of them rather than just being seized unconsciously. That's one of the big reasons that we do astrology in the first place. So to that end, we like to share our stories and talk about how we got grabbed and what we learned from the experience. So if you want to share a story about Mercury and Uranus or Mercury Mars conjunction this week, or either of them square to Saturn or anything like that, just use the hashtag grabbed, mention the aspect, and then tell us a quick story in like a paragraph. If you prefer to email it to us, email grabbed@nightlightastrology.com. That's where we host all of those stories in a separate email. So all right, that's what I've got for today. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow for some content before the weekend. All right, take care, everyone. Bye.